So we made it to Carriacou.
Nobody died.
Hey, it's Jennifer and Mark on Lunacy. Welcome back this time as we sail straight from St. Thomas to Grenada and hang around to the end where we talk about all the crap that went wrong and some things that went right. Time for jack lines.
No jacking around. Gotta put your jack lines down. So the weather window that we've been watching for over a week has moved in almost a full day. So we got COVID tested this morning. We're clear, checked out of the USVI. We are, instead of leaving in the morning, we are loosing the mooring lines right now and we are headed to Grenada.
We are off.
We're off, and I think I hear a squeaking alternator belt.
Good start.
Bye, Jesse! Bye, Lunacy! Alright, so I drew first watch. We are leaving St. Thomas, St. John, and Epstein's Creepy Island is actually behind us right now. We're going to be running on one engine most of the night. We were making about 4 knots on one engine, but we put up a fully reefed main, pulled it to one side. We got a decent wind angle that we're picking up about a half a knot off of that. And then of course we'll be alternating engines. Should have enough fuel to make it there and back almost, so fuel shouldn't be a concern on this trip, even if we have to motor there. But we're pretty sure once we get to Saba and make that right hand turn, we should be able to sail pretty much the rest of the way. It's pretty freaking calm right now. You almost never see it laying out like this. I say almost never. About once a month, once every 6 weeks, I'll get a decent wind like this.
Mark. Goodness, that is bright. Okay, it is 2:20 a.m. I came on shift at 2 a.m. It's our first overnight in this boat ever. But it's our first overnight of this trip. We have about 250 miles to Martinique. We were just off the east coast of St. Thomas. The weather forecast was terrible. We can talk about that later. The winds have calmed down. The seas have not calmed down yet. But about 1 a.m. Mark was able to turn off the engines and we're under full sail. So we are doing just fine. Okay, it's 5 a.m. First night, finally seas things have finally calmed down. We are heading 160 degrees. We're kind of aiming for Martinique still. We're about 4 knots, anywhere from 3 to 6 knots. Motor sailing now, but we're still carrying on.
So we had a pretty rough night. Looks like the squalls weren't all blown through, so we had 20 to 30 knots on the nose, rain. We were not able to continue easting, so we fell off and are actually cutting under the Saba Bank, which will cut off miles, but it does limit our bailout points should we have any kind of issues. So we are motor sailing now at about 5.5 knots, pointed straight at St. Lucia. So we'll hold this heading as long as we can. If we need to, we'll drop sail and motor due east, but for now I think we're just going to keep going business as usual. Trying to rest, trying to get some food, trying to stay hydrated. Got a line in the water. Maybe we'll catch a mahi. I did see some whales at sunup. That was kind of cool. Too far in the distance to get any kind of video. But not really sure what kind they would be that are still hanging out down there. But definitely whales.
You can see in this image from 2 p.m. on the 12th that we are definitely going more south than east.
We're rolling into our second night. We did about 120 miles in our first 24 hours, 4.8 knot average. I am about to get some shut-eye, and this beautiful lady is on shift. You got?
There is little. A bunch of sargassum and a small fish. And a wall of them.
So as the crow flies, I just checked on the chart plotter. We are 204 miles from our mooring in St. Thomas. We are 203 miles from the anchorage in Terrell Bay, Carriacou. So any second now, we're actually going to be crossing the halfway mark, even though technically we've gone a lot further. We're way past halfway because we had to go east and around St. Croix and then added quite a bit of mileage. So anyway, plugging along. Over halfway there, Will. Halfway there.
swap. Nasty.
Good morning. So, day 3. Circadian rhythms are gone. We have settled into our 4 hours on, 4 hours off shifts, which is a little bit weird because it's like being out here alone. Because when the other person is off shift, they're pretty much asleep. And you're sleeping on shift for 20 minutes at a time, trying to get as much rest as you can. So all you're doing is grabbing a little bit of food, trying to get some shut-eye. We just keep moving. We should be coming up right on halfway right now. We're set on a waypoint right now, headed to St. Vincent. Should be there sometime around noon tomorrow. Miles and miles and miles to go. Well, we just lost the starboard engine, so hopefully that is just a fuel filter. Got to jump in there and try to get it changed out. Let's see how it goes. Alright, so we're back up and running on the starboard engine. But as I was changing the filter, a wave came over and actually went into the water filter, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, took the cap out of the bottom, drained the bowl. It took a couple of tries, but everything seems to be running fine now. Fingers crossed. Maybe I should have changed these filters before we left. Day 3. It's not going very well. Can't really seem to make any good progress to windward. We totally lost the starboard engine yesterday. Leopard was completely full of water, probably from the swap that we're doing. So we're about 100 miles out from St. Vincent. We're going to try to motor sail to St. Vincent, do a quarantine check-in, see if we can get that other engine going. Should have stuck closer to the islands. So what a difference a few hours makes. We woke up to 20 knots. Had a pretty rough night. It wasn't terrible, but everything's noisier at night, so that seems kind of chaotic. Motor sailed and sailed most of the night. But we woke up to about 20 knots. Seas were like 5 to 6 foot on short intervals, a lot of bashing. Then we lost that engine, which our closest bailout point right now is 70 miles away. So on one engine it would take us a freaking day and a half to get there. Got that up and running, but then that made me start second guessing whether or not we should be as far off the islands as we are on a somewhat unproven boat. So we played around with what angle if we sail back east, well it'd be northeast, where that would have put us, and we basically would have been kind of headed back to Nevis, which is a little further, a little more backtracking, and it's 70 miles. Our next waypoint is only 100 and something, so just go ahead and tough it out and set sail back for the St. Vincent, Grenadines area. And lo and behold, the winds calm down, the seas calm down, and it's quite pleasant right now. So if we would have just stuck it out, we would have eventually, things would have calmed down on their own. So. I'm sure we both look lovely right now. Well, knock on wood, we're almost there. We're on our final leg, kind of downwind into Carriacou. Got in the wind shadow of St. Vincent a little bit, so the wind died off, so we're having to motor through the shadow. But hopefully around lunchtime, maybe a little after, we'll be anchored down in Terrell Bay. Thoughts?
Not really. I need sleep.
Me neither. Sleep is the thought. More later. Test. Me.
So we made it to Carriacou.
Nobody died.
Nobody died. And really the last day was actually pretty nice. Once we adjusted course and started heading south instead of trying to make any way east, it was pretty good.
We had some great hours at the beginning, some great hours at the end, and a little bit of chaos in the middle.
The middle wasn't my favorite, but the boat did fine, and, you know, we survived.
Yep. So what would you do? What did we do right? What did we do wrong? Things that I would want to do differently is I would probably sail the same path again if we had an inReach or some way to communicate, because it's about, you know, when we're hundreds of miles away from the close, not hundreds.
Not hundreds.
When we're 80 miles away,
miles.
which could be 2 days dead into the wind.
Yeah. We were definitely further offshore than we had planned.
Yeah. We realized that if we were to have some sort of catastrophic failure, we had really no way to communicate with anybody unless somebody was in VHF range. So I don't think we would, like, hopping from here to the next island over, I would do it, you know, I would do it definitely without an inReach, but...
Right. If we had hopped down the chain like we did the first time, wouldn't have been a big deal from island to island to island, but because we made such a big sweep of 485 miles, all of it 85 miles offshore, it was could have been sketchy.
Yeah.
Wasn't bad. It was fine.
And obviously the other thing I would do differently is some basic boat maintenance. Especially on this boat, you can't take care of that stuff underway. It's just too much risk of swamping the engines on this design. So I should have put new belts on, should have put all new fuel filters in, and we would not have had the issues. We likely wouldn't have had the issues that we had. So yeah, those two things.
Yeah, and we bought a boat and we have sailed it a little bit for 6 months, and it sat for ages before we bought it, from COVID and everything. So really, we should have cleaned the fuel tanks, or at least inspected the fuel tanks. That probably would have been helpful.
Probably wouldn't hurt.
What else?
I think that's.
I mean, food-wise, we were prepped. We did our standard 4 hours on, 4 hours off. We got some sleep. It's still tiring. Passages are still not my favorite, but you know, they get us here.
Yeah. And I guess another thing that's not in the video that I would definitely do different is going forward, I'm going to use a different timer for when I'm sleeping on watch. I think it was the second night maybe, and we're out of all the shipping lanes, so I'm a little bit laissez-faire about whether or not, is that the right word? So
You're a little bit lazy.
yeah, so I'm a little bit lazy on my shift watches, where I'm like, we're not going to be
There's no boats.
Yeah, there's no boats.
We saw three boats the whole time.
So my watch timer, I must have accidentally hit the button on it and turned it off, or failed to set it correctly. But I woke up at about 2 in the morning, and there was literally a cruise ship that had just crossed our bow and was maybe a quarter of a mile away from us. And we would be dead right now if the timing had been slightly off. So I'll definitely probably use my phone going forward, and then have it not on my person but sitting near me, so I can't.
And just for the record, I watched him turn off his watch a separate time and go right back to sleep. I just happened to be awake.
Not in a shipping lane.
I just happened to be awake. I'm like, oh, it's cool. He needs some rest, even though he's on watch. It's fine. So yeah, who knows how many times he turns off his alarm.
We were too lazy. I was too lazy about that. So I will definitely.
Yeah, I constantly wake up. I'm obsessed. But I sleep better on passage than he does on my off shift. So
That's true. So yeah. That's
anyway.
It. So now we are in Carriacou. We are in quarantine now for a couple of days. We've got the boat mostly squared away. We did get the starboard engine up and running, but then I broke another part while I was doing that.
Yeah.
So
I think next video we'll show you a little bit of all the little projects we've done. We found some fun leaks while we sit here in the rain.
Yep.
And yeah, and we might have accidentally had a port light open while we were underway, and might have accidentally soaked my entire sewing room. So
Yep.
we'll talk about that later.
So you'll see about that next time. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and definitely comment if you have any comments or questions.
See you next time.
See ya.